to click the go live button. Let's see, it's counting down. All right, it says that we are live on the YouTubes for the October 2021 Westlake Charter School Board meeting. Board President Golick, you are live.
Thanks, Dr. Ike. So tonight we are meeting pursuant to AB 361, which amended Government Code Section 54953, subsection E1, to allow local legislative bodies to hold public meetings via teleconference and to make public meetings accessible telephonically or otherwise electronically to all members of the public upon making certain findings every 30 days. And those findings are on our agenda tonight under the consent agenda. We encourage members of the public to observe and participate in our meeting. And if you need any further instruction on how to do that or help doing that, if you scroll to the end of our agenda, there are links and information there about how to submit an email or to join via Zoom, just to see what works best for you. With that, Amy, will you please take the roll?
Yes, I can do that. Hope.
Here.
Sean.
Here.
Josh.
Here.
Michelle.
Here.
Janie.
Here.
Lila.
Here.
Shannon.
Here.
And Jed.
Here.
Great, thank you. That brings us to celebrations. I'm going to go ahead and kick off the night tonight and celebrate the fact that, John, I believe we have another sport that just recently took the field. So I'm really super excited to hear about boys soccer, right? Is it boys soccer?
It is boys soccer.
That we're into our sort of our second season. And I just think that that's super awesome to have been able to see cross country and volleyball and now soccer. So I just want to take a chance to celebrate that. I will go to Janie next and then Lila.
I just want to celebrate our ASL Live, our clubs that are going on in the afternoons. Our sixth grade flex space had chess club the other day, and then the engineering club, and and then our kids, especially middle schoolers, are super excited about basketball. And so I love hearing how excited they are about all things Westlake. So I'm excited about that.
Okay. Thanks, Janie. Lila and then Jed.
Janie, I love that celebration. I have a kinder who's doing engineering and art, and she's so excited. I'm going to celebrate our partnership with the district through the community vaccination clinics. They held one last week where staff members were able to get their third booster shots of the Pfizer vaccine. And it was, I just really, really appreciate how we have partnered at Westlake with Natomas Unified to take care of our community in a public health crisis.
Thanks, Lila. Jed and then Josh.
I'll use the same one that I used in governance committee. I was at a gathering to recognize a CCSA staff member who's going on to big new things in life. And so we were there to celebrate him. But lots of folks came up to me and said, I think it was literally 4 people at this party of like 25 folks. Have you, celebrated enough what's happened at Westlake's High School? It's so great to feel good, all that stuff. So it was a little bit of a sub chatter, at this broader celebration. So just very happy to see that Westlake's High School is understood to be out of the gate so strongly.
Thanks, Jed. Josh and then Shannon.
Yeah, I have an odd celebration, but I love it. School pictures came back recently. And so we asked our son how school pictures went. And he said, I wore my mask. We said, well, did they ask you to take off your mask? He said, yeah, they asked me to take off my mask. I told them no. So we kind of thought he was messing with us a little bit. And school pictures arrived. And we have the coolest picture of him in his mask, looking at the camera, and I can't wait to get it on the desk at work. It's a sign of the times, and if anybody knows my son, that's him. So I want to celebrate that because I've never, and I think it's awesome. So
It's such a good picture. I might frame it and put it on my desk as well, Josh. It's a great picture.
Shannon and then Michelle.
I'm just going to celebrate. I love when my worlds cross. I was starting a meeting the other day at work, and a colleague of mine is a parent and was like, "Hey, before we begin, can I actually ask you a question or like get some feedback on something about Westlake?" So it's just like a fun crossover when we can start a meeting like talking about Westlake instead of about transportation or transportation in Westlake. So just a fun little celebration when I get to talk about Westlake is my job.
Well, and John had a great tweet this week about transportation in Westlake. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'd go check the Twitters. Michelle and then Sean.
Yeah, I'm going to repeat what I shared earlier, which is that we had 2 public health officials from Santa Cruz County that was recognized with the Penn Benison Courage Award, which was awesome. And they dedicated the award to all of their colleagues who had faced intimidation and threats. And so it was just an awesome moment for public health officials to be recognized for all of their hard work. I don't think many actually know what they do, but they are the unsung heroes behind the scenes. So just wanted to celebrate that.
Here, we can't celebrate that enough after these last 18 months. Sean and then Amber, if you'd like to celebrate.
So I will do a different one than I did in governance, and I will celebrate Amy Wells, who I have interacted with in her other capacity as Dean of Students today, and so did my kiddo. And he was very upset yesterday about a situation, and he came home today and he said to me, "I think it was handled really well and I feel safe." So really, what more could I ask for than that? So thanks, Amy.
Amber and then Amy.
I would love to celebrate that I'm sure Dr. Ike is going to talk about this later, are planning our first in-person coffee talk next week in the Oasis at our incredible high school. So I'm excited. A lot of parents, just the ones that I've told, the ones that were at the WAVE meeting, are super pumped for it. So it's just exciting to kind of slowly inch out there and see what we can do.
I love coffee at night.
You do. Thanks, Amber. Amy and then Steve.
I am going to celebrate Tiny Hands. Yesterday, I got a call to come to the cafeteria, and somebody was super duper upset and he was running around the cafeteria crying and very, very angry and upset. And I got him to come outside with me, and he sat down and he kept inching towards me. And I thought, oh, I know what he needs. And I said, "Do you want to hold my hand?" And he did. And I haven't held a little's hand in a really long time, because even when we came back to campus, I was doing my best to keep everybody safe. But I thought, this is what he needs right now. And for me to do the best I can for him, I need to do that. And so I held his hand, and he wanted to stay with me the entire activity time. And we did. And we held hands and we walked and we talked, and he was able to go back to class feeling pretty good. And so it was the best hand holding I've had in a really, really, really long time. So I'm going to celebrate little hands and loud dogs.
I love that you thought you could get away from the dogs. That was really my high point. No, that was a really sweet celebration. Thank you, Amy. Steve, and then John to bring us home.
I will do the same celebration I did in the last meeting, and that is squid dissection. It is back here at Westlake. We've done it for many years in a row, and it's just fun to see the kids kind of get engaged in the process and get their hands a little bit dirty. Again, I said in the last meeting, you can read about it in a book, you can watch a slide deck on it, but actually to do it is something completely different. So it's great to see them getting involved in projects like that once again.
Thanks, Steve. John?
I have a ton of celebrations in the slide deck. And I think what you'll see as you get into the slide deck and actually into the conversations that are happening, we're becoming more and more, back to school, in person. After school live is happening. Parents are, almost ready to trickle onto campus. We're gonna have a coffee talk together, outdoors, in person. Things are starting to return a little bit, and none of that happens without shared leadership. And this last 19 or 20 months just wouldn't we wouldn't be where we are today without the people on this screen. So my celebration is this board, your collective volunteerism, leadership, all of your expertise that you bring to this boardroom. Whether you feel like maybe you're just showing up or not, sometimes, like I'm telling you, what you've done over these last year and a half has kept Westlake together, and we're about to be the best we've ever been, coming back again. And it feels like, boy, I'm just so grateful for all of you. So just thank you, and buckle up. The next 6 months, I think we're just gonna have an awesome ride into returning to be who we are next. So thanks for your leadership.
Thanks, John. That brings us to board comments. Did board members have any comments that they want to make on matters that aren't necessarily on the agenda? Seeing none, that brings us to public comment. John, can you just check to see if we have any public comments? And again, as a reminder for anyone who's watching who may wish to make a public comment, we do have instructions on how to do so at the end of our agenda. So feel free to go ahead and submit via email or join our waiting room via Zoom while you continue to watch on YouTube. And those are two great ways of letting us know what you're thinking and for us to hear your feedback.
That's right. And I have on the YouTube live screen right now the two different ways where you can make a public comment, either emailing admin@westlakecharter.com or at the bottom of the board agenda, which is located at westlakecharter.com. You can click on the Zoom link right there at the bottom of the agenda, and you can jump right into this meeting and make a live comment. So that's on the screen now. I'm looking in the Zoom wait room. There's currently nobody in the wait room, but if they do pop up, Board President Gullick, I'll let you know. And then in the email, I also don't see any email board comments, but I will certainly keep my eyes peeled and let you know.
Perfect. And we'll continue to check that throughout the night. This isn't the public's only time to comment. It's just the time to comment on matters that aren't on the agenda already. So with us not currently having any comments, we'll go ahead and move on to reports. And Amber with the WAVE report.
Hi, so we had a meeting this week and then we have our planned coffee talk next week. So those are a couple upcoming parent engagement opportunities. We have been doing some restaurant fundraisers, which is nice because we haven't had some of our typical fundraisers. So we're just hoping if we bring in a little bit of money here and there, we can pay for some of the virtual events that we're trying to make happen. We put a survey out that'll come out this Sunday, trying to figure out what parents want to see, what kind of virtual events we can start with. And then hopefully as we inch towards, more normalcy, we'll start out with some small events as well. I'm really excited. We have an incredible 9th grade liaison team that are all volunteers, incredible parents who have been at the school for a long time. They started working with Mrs. Grimaldi to plan some of the events, including the upcoming masquerade event that is happening soon. So they've started working with her and they're planning for things. And it's just really cool to see that evolving and that the community and the teamwork coming together to make these events happen for our students. And we talked about the in-person coffee talk, which I just can't shout about enough. We're so excited and we're excited to see how it goes. And then we're also starting to plan Olympic triathlon because once again, it is our big fundraiser. We need to make it happen. So we're working on how that could look as an event on campus and then how we're going to fundraise. And that's kind of our main goal for that right now. And then as well as the engagement and keeping parents kind of involved with virtual events and then some of these other meetings. So that's really what WAVE is focused on right now.
Thank you, Amber. Shannon and Charter Impact.
Yeah, so last time we met, we talked through kind of refining and updating our goals for impact. We have not finalized those, but we will at our next meeting. And then we want to start looking at data, just kind of looking around at what data we already collect on some of the equity performance metrics that we're starting to think about or look at, as well as just doing a little bit of homework project on looking for any other type of equity dashboards or data sources or what other schools or industries or places do to kind of think about quantifying some of this information to see, do we already have some of this? What might this look like as we look towards creating some set of performance metrics or a way to at least understand how we're doing. So that's what we'll be coming back to you with soon.
Thanks, Shannon. Josh in development.
Yeah, thanks, Hope. So we meet on Monday. We're gonna finalize our goals. We're still working on, a couple of fundraising initiatives, a Museum of Tolerance, and then also some capital for the high school. So a lot of stuff going on. Again, biggest thing is we're still looking to grow our committee. We think that we would love to grow it, get some more people. We're particularly looking, if you guys know anybody that has experience with grant writing, would love to talk to them, or if anybody on the board knows anything about grant writing and might be able to just lend us a hand real quick. We're definitely looking for that, but we're off and running. We're small but mighty and looking to grow.
Yeah, for anyone out there watching, Josh is not kidding. We would love to grow that committee. So just email admin@westlakecharter.com if you're interested. We'd love to have you. Sean, Finance Committee update.
So Finance, we approved for recommending to the board the policies that are on tonight's agenda, and then continued our months-long review of certificated compensation, which will continue. I will keep saying the same thing over many months, but that's what's on for next.
Yeah, I always think that's the most important thing we do in finance, Sean. So that's why you hear about it so often coming from us, because we're always wanting to make sure we do it well and make improvements if we can. Governance's update is actually very similar to the Finance Committee update, because we also reviewed the 2 policies that came out of Finance and recommended them to the board for adoption tonight. We also are beginning the process of rescinding the school's uniform and dress code policy, not because we're getting rid of it, for anyone out there watching, but because a lot of that is already stated in the family handbooks for both the K-8 and the 9-12, and we want to make sure it's as easy and accessible for families to have. And the best way of doing that is putting it all in one place, so you all know where to look where you need it. So that will likely be on the agenda next month, and that took up most of our time tonight in government. So with that, John, before you start your report, can we just do one more quick check for public comment?
Absolutely.
And then we'll kick it over to you.
Absolutely. I am looking in the waiting room right now, seeing no public comment there. And now I'm looking in the email inbox and seeing no public comment there. So I will...
Perfect. Celebrate away, because I know that's where you'll start.
I've got quite a few celebrations, but I'll try to walk right through them quickly. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Let's dive in. Hey, our high school has an official high school student council. We have elected officials. You can see in the picture on the far left there, the poll attendees. Admin were out there helping students, get their ballot. You can see a student voting, and then you can see the election results right there. Very proud of our students who just ran clean, wonderful campaigns and just modeled the democratic process. And just proud of those students. They're already leading. They're already making the school shared leadership between students and staff come to life, and it's wonderful. Always want to celebrate the Spirit Fridays. I love this because not only do the kids go all out, but you can see especially those middle school teachers rocking some Spirit Sports Day there. Tons of fun having everybody on campus, of course, this year, and bringing those Spirit Days out. I think this should be just one of our greatest celebrations is After School Live, led by the amazing Allison Chavez, previous board member, as you'll recall. But After School Live is back. We've got, coding club and chess and acting enrichment classes and after school explore athletics. So we're launching boys and girls basketball right now. And it's just going to be fantastic to have our kids after school. I walked out for yesterday's soccer game. There's just so much going on. It was like, it feels like school again. So wonderful to have an After School Live program up and running. We celebrated, Ms. McIver celebrated our partnership with NUSD and the vaccination clinic. But this surveillance testing clinic that Melissa Grunholtz and her team has really organized on campus every Wednesday. Huge success. What a great extra layer to help make our community safe, and the staff out there are friendly and kind and committed every week to doing this. It's going really smoothly, and we're really proud that this work is happening for our community. So a great celebration piece there. Just joyful learning. The students drawing Everest the Explorer in the Rainbow Room, which is the art room, all of our specialties, all of our programs. I think there might even be a squid dissection. Maybe that's on another slide, but just all the joyful learning for sure. Whole school morning meeting. Remember, we always used to meet out on the blacktop, kindergarten through 5th grade, and do the morning meeting. Well, you can't do that anymore because it just puts too many people, too many bodies too close together. So, we have a whole school morning meeting led via Google Meet, and it's really a cool opportunity for kids to, read something about a core value in front of their classmates, but also in front of the whole school who are all live on a Google Meet. Just a really cool piece. Mrs. Kite, who's leading that, doing a great job on the K-8. Here it is. Yes, you've heard us talk about cross country. You've heard us talk about our amazing girls volleyball team. But yesterday, our boys soccer team had their first game, and it was just fantastic. We had some young men out there who had never played a soccer game in their life, but they're like, "We need people on the team to field the team. Put me in, coach." And they went out there, and I'm telling you, to the final whistle, we were out there, battling it out. And we were down on the scoreboard in points, but perseverance was alive and well. Strong explorer character was on point. Our athletes held themselves up well, and Jalen Jimenez, big shout out to him. I mean, literally at the buzzer, just going strong to the last moment. So I love to see the character of those athletes in their very first competition, and they'll be out there again. I think they're on the road next week. You might recognize Amber Husted right there, and the Jive team. Our Walk to School team who are rocking our walking school bus. Also scanning kids for their. We're in the middle of Walktober right now, but also a shout out to our partners at SAC RT. I mean, we're using SAC RT daily, total game changer to tell our community, look. We are partnering with public transit. We are partnering with Jive. We are all about finding alternate routes to school, bike, walk, skateboard, riding RT. I just love the vibe. It's going really well, and I'd love to see us continue to build on that right there. I've got 2 strategic actions and I think maybe 2 updates, and then we have a discussion item tonight that I can't wait to get you all talking about, which is strategic planning moving forward later tonight. First strategic action, I just want to follow up on the substitute teacher recruitment and retention. This is a nationwide and a statewide crisis, and we're doing some heavy recruiting, and our sub pool is real thin. Every one of our administrators were in classrooms subbing today and yesterday, every day this week, it's reached a real crisis level, but there's a silver lining that our parents are starting to pull through, and we're working through that process. So the first thing we're doing, though, to help with recruitment and retention is that we've been analyzing our substitute teacher compensation, how much we pay, and we decided to use our certificated compensation comparison matrix that the finance team uses, where we compare our certificated compensation to the 9 geographic located districts and charters close to us to see how we compare. So we decided to apply that to the substitute pay, and through some analysis demonstrated that, there is a potential need for adjusting substitute compensation. So we're considering that right now and plan to move forward on that, because we want our substitutes to be compensated appropriately. We also want to use that as a recruitment technique and a retention technique, not to lose our good subs who can go down to Twin Rivers or Natomas Unified, who have received a lot of money through CARES Act and all the separate fundings that we haven't had access to. You see those large districts saying, hey, where can we spend this money? Well, there's a sub crisis out there, and you can see the money flowing. So I don't know that we'll ever be able to compete dollar for dollar with the big districts who got all that money, but we're certainly going to try to make sure we're not losing people just because of the daily rate. However, it's not just money. We'll get beat on money every day when it comes to Natomas Unified received $43 million this year in extra funding that we didn't. So we'll get beat on dollars, but what we have is a little Westlake mojo. And so we reached out to our families and we said, hey, do you have a college degree? Could you give us a day, a month? Are you interested in coming out and substitute teaching? And when we shared this with some of our colleagues in CCSA, people thought, you're doing what? You're asking your families? And here we go. We have currently this little chart you see on the screen shows where we are today. It's a snapshot of today. And these columns are growing and shrinking. But as of today, we have 13 families who are currently interested, and we're talking them through the process, how they could get in and become subs. We have 4 who've we're currently collaborating with to complete the process. They've gone from communicating into collaborating column. We have 6 family members right now who've already gone through the recruitment process, gone through the collaboration process, filled out all the things, turned in all the stuff, done the fingerprinting, the TB, all the whatnots, and they are now kind of waiting on the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing to receive their substitute credential. Once they ring that bell, we can put them in the classrooms. That's really good news right there. Crisis not yet averted, though. It could be up to 90 days to get the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing is backed up right now. And so we're calling and trying to push these people to the front of the line, but it could be a 90-day wait for any of these people to get a sub license. And we're down to just a handful of subs right now. So every time somebody calls in because they're sick or because they have symptoms or for any reason, it's a bit of a crisis. So we're managing it. I'm very inspired by the innovative approach that we're all taking. And in the next 60 to 90 days, I hope that list continues to grow and we will be saved from this crisis by our families. And it'll be wonderful to have them on campus, and we'll train them up how to be amazing subs. So with that said, one other strategic action that Mrs. Husted was alluding to was that we are really starting to consider and have conversations about community building on campus. How do we get our families back on campus? I mean, one way is we're trying to make them substitute teachers, but that's not the primary way we're trying to get people to build community on campus. We called the Sacramento County Public Health and we said, hey, can we have an on-campus, outdoor, socially distanced coffee talk? And sure enough, they gave us the green light. So we're gonna be having that in the high school Oasis on this next Tuesday. People will be able to reserve a table, socially distanced. We'll ask them to kind of, come with their group and then leave with their group and try not to mingle. But it's gonna be fun to have families on campus for an event. We're also talking about adjusting our restrictions on spectators at sporting events. Right now, it's families only. It's pretty tight. So we'll be making an announcement in the next week about how we're going to loosen that up and allow more people on campus as long as they follow the safety regulations, masking indoors, socially distancing outdoors, to come out and see sports. So we're really excited about that. We think that's the next stretch along the road. Like, okay, let's get to sports. And then we're starting to investigate how might we do potential on-campus outdoor volunteerism like Olympic triathlon. Could we do some of that? So we have some calls into Sacramento County Public Health on things like that. So we're inching our way toward what comes next. And of course, we'll take our lead from the California Department of Public Health and the Sacramento County Public Health Department. But we're trying to think forward. How can we get our community back on campus and starting to do what we do, which is collaborate with our community. I have a few updates. Any questions on either of those 2 items, substitutes or community collaboration on campus? No? You guys are really small on my screen, so I'm squinting a little bit. Okay, let's do some updates. I just want to talk about academic progress. This is the time of year that I always come out and do the academic update. It's kind of an interesting one this year because we really have no multi-year data to compare, and I'll explain that. And then we're going to do a quick budget outlook, and Steve and I are going to tag team on this. I'll do an academic piece. I want to talk a little bit about our story with NWEA because we've been using it for many, many years, well over a decade. And the last time we did NWEA was in the year 2019. In 2019, we were using, it's norm reference data, and they have a set of norms that tell you, oh, if you score, this is where you fall on the percentile ranking and things like that. 2019 was the last year of the previous norms. 2020 was the first year of the updated norms. So we called NWA and said, hey, you updated your norms in 2020. Everybody went offline to distance learning in 2020. And they said, we know it's kind of messed everything up, but we're not going to do another norms research until we hit our 5-year mark. And so everybody's going to have to kind of adjust to that. We said, okay, fine. We haven't done NWEA testing though. We didn't do it in the 2020-2021 school year last year. So we had no NWEA data last year, and we had no CASP last year because instead of CASP, we did the STAR, right? Renaissance testing, if you'll recall that. It's really an interesting assessment story. So 2 things come out of this. Each round of testing that we have engaged in has really helped us operate as a universal screener. Who's performing where they should be, who needs support. That's our pillar of personalization. So these, the tests that we have utilized, STAR in the spring and now NWEA in the fall, they have allowed us to continue our process of utilizing it as a universal screener. So that's a positive. Our kids are getting what they need. What's clearly lacking is a multi-year comparison. Like we can't compare CASP to CASP because we lost CASP and we got STAR. You can't compare STAR to NWA because they don't measure well, and NWA to NWA don't measure well because of the renorming and the multi-years of not doing it. So having said that, I would love to show you what I think we're doing really well with the data, and I think you'd agree. The universal screening part, when we took the STAR test in the spring, I don't think I reported on this because we were all just so busy in the spring, but we took the STAR test in the spring. Our team worked with every grade level team. You'll see this little snippet of a chart. I think that's maybe a second grade portion of a chart. And every single student, we took their STAR test along with their local data, benchmark data, report card data, and we had teams of teachers targeting students at the end of the year when we got the STAR data back for summer intervention. And so we built our summer intervention program really targeted off of this analysis, used running records in the primary grades. Now, that's in the spring. Roll forward to the fall. This spreadsheet that I'm showing you a little snippet of is what the MTSS team is using, and it is really, really good work. We had the fall NWA administration. We have real-time universal screening. I mean, it happened within the first 3 weeks of school, and already within 3 weeks of that window closing, the multi-tier, MTSS team has pulled every single student below the 20th percentile by name, by need, reading and mathematics, and identified each student's data story. And I took obviously the student names off of here and any identifiable information, but what you can see is a team of people over a period of weeks coming together, talking about students one at a time. Oh, hey, this student is already receiving some social emotional support because the family is going through a divorce. Hey, this student right here is already receiving services as an English learner, and that is probably why they're on this reading have low reading scores, but we know we can target that through this. Hey, this student right here is already receiving tier 2 phonics intervention, but let's add a second piece of curriculum to that to help them rise. And so this whole personalization through the use of data, I think, is really good work. Examples that you see on this spreadsheet, for instance, is obviously our English learner support. We have a dedicated teacher on special assignment. Jessica Ashby leads this work. She's phenomenal at what she does. In fact, I'll come back next month and celebrate. We just got our reclassification numbers back from the fall, and she had a phenomenal reclassification rate from spring to fall, highest we've had in several years, and so we're really proud of that work. Tier 2 phonics intervention. Here's an example, really for the primary grades, we've utilized foundations, but now we're starting to utilize a program called Ready to Rise, which we've purchased in addition for more support. So really targeting intervention by name, by need. But I wanted to call this piece out here. Several of the students we're targeting were saying, gosh, we don't really know why this student is performing academically below where they should be. And through some conversations with the MTSS team, we've identified social emotional needs as kind of the target for why a student's underperforming. Now, that we went from, a couple years ago, we had one counselor. Now we have 3 counselors, 1 at the high school, 2 at the K-8, obviously a full-time school psychologist here. But we also have 2 counseling interns from the University of San Francisco that are just starting on campus this month. And so we really have more adults who can provide this service than maybe ever before. And so we think this is really going to help us target students one by one, personalizing based on the universal screening we did academically, but also approaching it social emotionally. Also, we've changed up ROAR a little bit and we brought it into the school day, because what we found was certainly at certain grade levels, it was hard to get people to come in, before school, stay after school. It's now we've revamped ROAR to support students during the school day. So again, universal screener, using NWEA and responding immediately and trying to get our students what they need. The other part of this data though is comparative data. Like, why do we want comparative data? Number one, we like to track cohort data. This group of 3rd graders performed like this last year, and now they're in 4th grade. How are they doing? Are we seeing them trending in the right direction? Is there something that's happened, that they're trending in the wrong direction? How can we help a cohort? The other type is benchmark grade level data. Hey, the last 3 years of 4th grade have performed like this. This grade level, though, is performing like this. Let's ask why. Have we changed curriculum? Have we changed instructional practices? So 2 types of comparative data are really important, but I just explained, we don't have great comparative data right now. Not doing NWA, not doing CASP last year, the renorming of NWA. So this is our next step. We're going to take the fall 21 data that we just produced. We're going to use this to do cohort tracking against the February 2022, this upcoming NWA. So we want to track growth by cohort and by student for this February and again in the spring. And then using the fall, winter, and spring of this year, we'll then have benchmark data to do comparative analysis, grade level to grade level, starting next year. So we think 1 year from now, we should kind of back on track with all of our comparative data pieces, but we will not let off the gas on the utilizing it as a universal screener to intervene and help support our students. So that's a quick look at the academic update. Any questions, thoughts, or concerns about academics before we jump into some budget? Michelle, Ms. Gibbons?
Yeah, thank you. I'm really interested in that academic report too, just in light of everything that students have gone through.
Yeah.
I'm also really interested in looking at it from an equity lens. And so just curious if you've pulled and extracted the data from different demographics, both from income, race and ethnicity, if you've looked at it different ways and noticed any trends.
Yeah, my team and I actually had that conversation regarding pulling cohorts of data and starting to do some comparative data. And what we fell on was we're going to use the February data as our first growth tracker and use our equity lens there. We did do some initial equity analysis just on the single, on the single instance. In this fall, 2021, we can look at the data by subgroup, and we have done that internally, and we see the gaps, okay? What groups are outperforming other groups. However, the gaps exist, but are they good or bad compared to what? We'd like to grow out to February and then analyze the growth data because we think that's the more powerful data. We tried, in all reality, to do a backwards analysis all the way back to 2019, but with the renorming of the NWA data and the big gap between the 2 years, we thought, let's stay focused, let's do what we do, let's support the kids who need our support, and let's wait till February on the growth. If you would like me to, though, I would be glad to make sure that when we come back for our February academic update, that I can focus on that type of data. I also thought, Shannon, that we might bring over to Impact that conversation, since that's what we're going to be talking about this month, is equity through a data perspective.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you all are really focused around that too.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll make sure, Amy, would you make sure we make a note like that is a piece that we bring to Impact and we bring back to the board in February, because I think it'd be great to put it on the table. Any other questions, academics? Okay. I know in the past we've gone a deeper dive and showed more comparative numbers, and we will again, I promise. Okay, budget outlook. Steve and I kind of put this together. We know first interim's around the corner, but we want to bring the board along because we know that it's about revenue and expenditure. And on the revenue side of the house, we generate revenue based on enrollment and average daily attendance. We know that for the traditional public school district, they have a built-in hold harmless in their budget. If their ADA goes down significantly or at all, they are held to their previous year's ADA. Well, as we'll all recall, our previous year's ADA in the 2019-2020 year was actually held harmless to the previous year. So the traditional public school district now will more or less have been frozen for 2 years, whereas the charter schools don't have that safety net this year. So our ADA is real-time revenue. So here's where we are right now, our adopted budget for the 21-22 year, the year we're in currently. Our attendance was targeting 96% kindergarten through 8th grade and 95% 9-12 or 9th grade. Our enrollment target was 1,125 students. We call it's 1,000 K8, and we were targeting 125 in the high school. And our unduplicated pupil count percentage was targeting 40%. And you'll recall that we utilize that as a target because your unduplicated student adjusts the funding equation, right? Students, unduplicated students have a multiplier associated with their funding. So they bring in more revenue so that you can give more services to the students who really need them. So this is our adopted budget. Well, here's where we are right now. It doesn't mean this is where we're going to be at the end of the year, but our current real-time data shows that our attendance is 94% at the K-8 and 94% in the 9th grade. Week by week, we've even seen some lower dips and some higher dips. This is where we are cumulatively. However, with a $10 million budget, real rough numbers, every 1 percentage point on ADA costs us about $100,000. So if we looked at this and said, hey, what if we ended the year 3 percentage points below what we had targeted, that would cost us $300,000 with no foreseeable way to ask the state to help us out. And we're certainly scratched on anywhere we can scratch, but we don't know that there is going to be a way to recoup that. So we're working hard to bring attendance up, but this is our current reality. Now you'll see our enrollment numbers. We targeted 125. We're sitting at 130. But look at our unduplicated count. We were targeting 40%, and it's dropped a little bit. Those numbers are soft because the census data just closed on October 6th. We're waiting to hear back from the district on our free and reduced lunch count. We're making some general assumptions that less people filled out the free and reduced lunch form, because lunch is free for everybody in California right now. And so we don't know if the district also dropped in that, and we don't know if our numbers are still a little bit soft, and maybe those numbers will rise. But we want to put this out there, not as a doom and gloom, oh goodness, let's all beware, but as a cautionary tale as we go forward that, ADA matters, the way we enroll our students and collect our data matters, and the way we operate our program. Now, that's I got the revenue side, or I got that side. Steve's got some hopefully hopeful news for you. Steve, you want to take that?
Sure. And again, it's not all doom and gloom. It's just kind of a reality check with how things are coming along. Again, as we kind of head towards the end of first interim, which ends this month. So if we look at, again, attendance and enrollment, and they're coming in maybe a little bit softer, there are some bright spots. Those bright spots really, a chunk of them came in the form of the state budget, which of course was passed after our adopted budget. And in the state budget, there's a few pockets of money that are coming out. Here you can see the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. Some funds will be coming our way. That's TBD because the exact dollar amount really hasn't materialized yet. You'll see some expanded learning opportunities monies that are headed our way. That's really for providing some before and after school structures for students. So we have a dollar amount there. Again, there's an early learning grant. It's really for TK expansion. And the question around this is the state just going to send out the money, or if they send out the money, are they going to ask us to expand down to TK? So again, there's a little question mark for our advocacy partners there. And then last but not least, on the state side, some specific dollars for special education. So even though attendance might be coming down a little bit, that may have an impact on that side of the budget, there's definitely some other side, some other good revenue news. And then, of course, we have our structured partners, Silicon Schools. They'll be coming out here in another couple of weeks or so. If we check some boxes for them, and it appears that we will, that they have an agreement with us that they will provide some revenue our way. And then, of course, Reed Hastings and the Hastings Quilling Grant Fund generally have provided growth for each student that we have grown, $1,000 per student. So there's a potential for some additional revenue there. That revenue generally, though, comes in really, really late in the year, in the kind of April, May, June timeline. So it's something that we really don't recognize towards the end of the year, but we are still very thankful for it when it comes in. So kind of a balanced slide, right? When you take a look at it, again, might be a little bit softer on the ADA side, but then we've got some brighter outlooks as well.
Good, good. Any questions on the budget update? Hope Golick?
Have you heard of any sort of legislative discussions to push the hold harmless to go beyond just traditional school districts to include charters? I'm just wondering if we know of any organizations that might be willing to take that challenge on.
So we've been kind of scratching on this, and we put our feelers out there. We're certainly asking our partners at CCSA. It doesn't seem very hopeful that anybody's willing to present that legislation at this time. We've also asked about utilizing the J13 waiver for attendance, and thought we'd seen maybe a little light at the end of the tunnel, but also it seems to maybe have closed down in this last as the trailer bills and everything kind of shored up. So we'll keep scratching on it with our partners. I think we even reached out to early to Eric Premack, who also said, that doesn't look likely. Am I right on that, Steve?
Yeah, I think Eric Premack summarized it at there's really not much of an appetite under the Capitol Dome for taking this particular piece on.
I mean, it certainly would be an interesting piece of data at the end of the school year to calculate the total number of dollars lost to charter schools, as a part of this process when we're already underfunded or funded less than our traditional public school partners at, unified school districts. So I don't know, it's just something I thought I'd ask about because it seems like another inequity.
Well, and to be clear, when scratching kind of on the legislation, the legislature seems to be focused on attendance as it pertains to students who are placed on quarantine and have said, hey, well, you can all use the independent studies to recapture ADA for quarantine students. However, that's not the ADA that we're losing here at Westlake Charter School. We're losing ADA because we're telling our families, please, if you have any symptoms at all, stay home because, we want to keep our community safe. So the more you adhere to the California Department of Public Health guidelines and say, please stay home when you're out for a day, you can't just use independent studies for that. That's where the ADA loss seems to be happening for us. So just putting that out there.
No, and that all makes sense to me, John. I mean, particularly with the stringency that was put in place around independent study, right? There are tools out there. The problem is none of the tools are really mapped out to align in a way that gives schools like ours relief for trying to do the right thing.
Thank you. Any other questions, team?
Wasn't there something put in place after the budget this year? And if I have to dig it up, I'm happy to look, where it gave a little bit more flexibility with the ADA or the recapturing. This is not my lane, but I do vaguely recall that there was some clarification that was sent out after the budget passed.
Was that regarding independent studies?
Yeah, but it was not just for like quarantine, like if your kid was sick, it actually, if you were aligning with public health guidance. And so I'm just curious about whether that gave a little bit more flexibility. And I can send you the language if I
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
make-
do that. I mean, we can certainly go back and give it a reread. I mean, from our understanding, and Steve, you and I were in the room together on this, but like from my understanding, as we talked to legal and kind of pieced through the legislation, the conversation was, I thought, clear that, hey, you're not going to use independent studies every time a kid calls in sick. If somebody calls in sick, they're homesick for a day, they're homesick for 2 days. That's not an independent studies opportunity. Independent study opportunity is really more of a structured rationale. But hey, send me the language. I would love to look at. If we missed a loop, we'll close it up. I'd love it.
I assume that you did all your due diligence. I'll send it just in case.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, team. Anybody else? All right. I hope that sends it back to you on the agenda, I think.
Perfect. John, would you mind, before we take on the consent agenda, would you mind doing another check for public comment?
Sure. I'm looking in the waiting room now and see no public comment. And I'm looking in the email inbox and see no public comments.
Perfect, thank you. So we have 4/5 items on tonight's consent agenda. I say that only because item D does contain 2 separate policies for revision tonight. Like we said during our committee updates, both the Finance Committee as well as the Governance Committee have recommended those policies for adoption this evening, which is why they are on the consent agenda for tonight. There's also the necessary findings that became required when AB 361 took effect and our traditional monetary and minute review. Are there any questions on the consent agenda, or is there a motion to approve?
I'll move the consent agenda.
Thank you, Sean. Is there? Thanks, Josh, for the second. Amy, will you please take the vote?
Yes. Hope,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Janie,
Yes.
Lila,
Yes.
Shannon,
Yes.
and Jed.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, everyone. That now brings us to our discussion item for this evening, and that is to discuss the board assessment and some initial discussions around strategic planning.
Very good. I have some slides on this. I mean, what I'd really like to do is just share with the board quickly how we scored ourselves in some of the skills areas. That should go pretty quick. And then I would just like to open the floor on the last portion of what the survey was that we took, which was, hey, where do you think we should be going in the next 18 months around our strategic plan? And the second part of that is, what's missing in the strategic plan? When we wrote it, it was pre-pandemic. We were in a different place. Is there something in that's missing? I went through with Hope, went through all of our survey responses. We did a little initial coding. We did a little initial, curating and grouping and seeing where people fell. But we thought it'd be a nice opportunity over a multi-month process to just open the floor, let everyone hear each other's voices tonight. So this is the part of the show where you get to chime in and have your voice be heard. So I'll go through a couple of slides and I'd love to hear from you really on what part of the strategic plan should we be focusing on in the next 18 months and what's missing from the strategic plan. So just quickly, the whole process here is to use this assessment to develop next steps, right? Board development, strategic planning, and strategic recruitment and succession planning, right? So what are we looking at in our strategic plan going forward, and what board members do we need to bring on to help us with that strategic plan? What does our board need? What support do you need? What direction are we heading or should we focus on next? And what qualities are we looking for from future board members? So section 1, very rudimentary. Hey, do you know how to find the documents? Very strong showing there. Do you know the roles of our board members? Very strong showing there. And then 100% on this one, are you able to access the website and the related pages? Really the next steps here is developing a better onboarding website that you get to one splash page and it maybe has all of the documents that you need in one place, all of the materials in one place, the digital evidence box, and any onboarding materials. As I looked at the the data on this survey, it looked like the newer you were to the board, maybe the harder it was to find documents. And so that makes sense. It's a bit of an onboarding issue. Section 2 had 6 questions, right? Are you able to maintain objectivity? Are you aligned with the school's mission? Are you contributing to the board? You can see the results are skewed to the right, which is great. Everyone feels engaged and has access and feels like we're governing objectively. I love that. The second part offered probably the one area we could probably touch on a little more, and that is, do you have a clear understanding of the economics of Westlake Charter School, including our budget and short and long-term financial outlook? That kind of data was spread out 1 through 5. So, maybe that's an area we target for professional growth as a team, but also, skewed to the right on academic and social emotional readiness and understanding of those. So that felt strong. I think the next step on that might be, increasing time to discuss financial outlook. Hope?
I just wanted to add, because I know, Sean, through finance, right, we've done a lot of work on the understanding the economics of WCS. So I will share too that this was another piece that's similar to onboarding.
Yeah.
That's where it fell. The newer you were on a committee or on the board, the farther to the left you fell.
Yeah.
So it's just a piece for us to be aware of in terms of how we bring people into the fold and how we educate them on our finances.
Yeah, just as a reminder, I apologize. It's a good call. I hope that this includes committee members who've only been with us for one meeting, committee members who may be with us for less than a year even. So the data does kind of show that the longer you're here, the more you might be aware of these things. Josh?
Yeah, thanks, John. Steve, I'm just going to throw you out there. When I first joined the board, I was able to sit down with Steve and just kind of go through everything and ask some questions and kind of see how everything worked. It just went, whoo. But it definitely helped going through it. And I don't know if we have the time, or maybe Steve could do a quick little crash course, kind of similar to what he did with me for the board, just kind of walking through everything. It really helped me to understand what he's presenting and how things work a lot more.
Yeah, and I believe Steve's still doing an onboarding like that with each new board member, committee member as they come on. But yeah, hey, honestly, Steve's a great teacher. I'd love to get him in the classroom. Honestly, every time he gets up to present something, I go, gosh, this guy's got to be a teacher. So yes, if we want to do a financial presentation from Steve to the board, let us know. We'd love to put that on. Let's dive into then this last. I'm sorry. Any other thoughts, Shannon?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I totally agree that Steve and the finance team always do a good job pulling this together and explaining it. I think for me, mine knowledge went down again because of basically all the things you just talked about with how does COVID impact this and how does ADA. And so I felt when I was looking at this again, I was I feel like the things I've learned, I have now since had to learn new things, and I no longer feel as confident answering this question on the right end of this. So to me, it's not necessarily about any of the work anyone here is doing to communicate that to me, and more just new things came up and it skewed my understanding of the financial outlook.
Well, I think, one of the things one of the things it says in this slide right here is allocate increased time to discussing, discussions regarding financial outlook. So maybe not just waiting for first interim, second interim, but weaving throughout the year pertinent financial conversations so that it's more part of the monthly repertoire for our board, and it'll help us kind of contextualize and grow in that area. And you're right, there's been a lot of news this year, Shannon. I mean, since COVID, there's been a lot to focus on. Anything else, team? Janie?
I was just going to reiterate that Steve did an amazing job with Lila and I as we entered, but then it's it was a great overview, but then there's specific things that have come up that, right? So it's then focusing on what specifically we need to know about financial things that are coming up that maybe I wouldn't know. But I definitely felt like I had a good overview. But then when the specific things come up, it's a little bit harder.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Michelle?
I think the finances is just always so technical. I might have reframed this question a little bit to not say that like when I looked at this, I was like, I could not give Steve's presentation. But I do always feel prepared to make decisions because all of the information has been presented. And I feel like we have a thorough understanding before we have to take action on it. So I might just rephrase that question a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great reframing. Thanks, Michelle, because you're right. Before you're asked to take action, are you prepared? Yeah, that feels good. Anybody else? The last part of this really is the launch to the discussion item, right? So these were narrative responses you gave, but I wanted you to hear each other's voices and be able to do what you do so well as a team, which is one person throws something on the table and other people seem to add on to it. So which part of the strategic plan do you feel we should focus on in the next 18 months? I did throw a copy of the strategic plan in the board packet if you needed it. And then, what do you feel is missing from the strategic plan? Is there anything now that we're hopefully heading toward post-COVID, is there anything that's missing from that strategic plan? Now, I throw the 18 months out there partly because I always feel like if you do the work in the fall and by about January, you really know where you want to be in 18 months, it takes you through the end of the year, around the next year to the following June. And so I love this 18-month thought because I always think, okay, kick something off in the new year, run it around for 18 months, and you end up at summer break on the second time around. So I just put that out there because I feel like you can almost get anything in the world you want done in that 18-month span right there. Hope maybe you'll help me lead this discussion, but let's open it up. Should we do a whip round or just an open floor?
Well, we discussed doing it as a whip around, but it's always so tough to put someone on the spot. So why don't we go ahead and just open up the floor at this point for people who feel comfortable, sharing as to either one of these questions, really.
Okay. Don't be shy. Where do you see us going in the next 18 months? If you want to focus on an area of the strat plan, or what do you think is missing from the strat plan?
I can start
Shannon,
since
thanks.
I was delinquent in filling this out, so it's top of mind. I think for me, just looking back at it, I think so much of what I feel like we should focus on is, based on all of the changes and like just honestly trauma that so many people have gone through over the past 18 months. And so I think I call this school and community collaboration, but it honestly fits in a lot of places, but just like really looking at what additional supports for the board, for how the board can additionally support the community and like the ties between school and community collaboration in terms of just like, again, like doing the research to find out, can we have coffee talks socially distanced on campus? But then also like, what kind of expectations can we help continue to set for the community because things are probably never going back to normal, at least not with the snap of the finger, right? And so continuing to figure out ways to provide additional resources and understand our impact in the community and the ways that we can kind of be there and also take from when we need, additional support and things like that. So I kind of just thought of this in a broad sense of like, how are we strengthening the ability to like respond to these ever-changing like trauma needs? And I think this goes to not just the pandemic, but then also all of our discussions around like equity and bias and just like, coming together and figuring out how we can strengthen some of those supports.
Yeah, Shannon, there was definitely a call out through the data for what I termed as a goal area 2, right? School and community collaboration. And what really struck out to me, and I think it's similar to your comment and really builds on it, hopefully, is the last line of the goal, which is that the WCS community will recognize that every voice is valued. And John and I have talked about how after COVID, people maybe don't feel as invested or as wanted or as involved as they did, 18 months ago when we had all these opportunities. So is there a goal around that collaboration about bringing the community together, helping us build trust in each other again, and coming together behind some shared goals? And I think that while John and I didn't code the data because it's such a small pool, you definitely saw that ribbon come through other board and committee members' comments. So thank you for sharing and going first. I really appreciate it. Anyone else want to go?
I'm happy to add on because I think Shannon, I had similar thoughts along what you just shared. I think the healing of our community and everything that we've experienced, not inflicted by us, but just through the pandemic, I really want to see a strong focus over the next 18 months around kind of the social, emotional wellness of our campus, our students, our families. As much as we focus on the kids, I think we also need to think about, are there healing tools for families as a whole that we should be exploring and offering in some of those, like, virtual settings or back in person settings? Like, how can we navigate that to make sure that our families have support? And then I would like, Westlake has done a great job at recognizing the need to really be fully inclusive of, racial equity and, just equity across the board. And I just would love to make sure that we're backing that by looking at data and identifying, like, once we see what the gaps are, tracking them to make sure that they're being minimized, but also thinking strategically about what supports we need to provide to ensure that we are starting to close that. And it's huge. It's not a small undertaking and not something that school alone can fix. But I do think that if as a campus and as a community, we're doing our part of that, I think it's really important to do that. And I know there's other sectors that are looking to do the same. So if we could just make sure that we are looking at data and making it actionable and making sure that we're not leaving a population behind, then I think that would be a great focus.
I want to just piggyback, Michelle. I love the call out for I love both the call outs, but I love the call out for SEL for families and students. But our staff, I want to throw them in that bucket too. As I look around, and I think there's I keep talking about national crises, but I feel like in the education industry, there's a crisis among staff right now in what's called secondary trauma, right? So when you are in charge of 28 little kids and you know about all of their trauma, you take on what's called secondary trauma, and we're watching educators, administrators as well, because they sit up at 40,000 feet, and they're carrying the trauma as well of all these families, and it's really a part of the equation. So I love the call out. What resources do we have for families, for our students, our staff, our whole community? Great call.
Lila, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I want to echo that. When I looked at the strategic plan, my priorities mainly fell in goal area 1, and it just spoke a lot to the nimble, responsive, innovative in this period of time and how important that is. And so that very first one, recruiting and retaining staff, right? We know that there's a teacher shortage. We talked about the substitute shortage and how that is impacting staff right now. And I'm thinking too, sitting here at the high school, recruiting our next, set of amazing educators to be here at the high school as we are retaining teachers at the K-8, and how important that is going to be to be successful right now in this moment of time and take care of who's so important to Westlake Charter School. And I know administrators are so aware of it and are working so hard around it, but just being aware of it as a board also about how we do that, that just recruitment and retention of high quality staff.
Yeah. And you said it, Lila, but I'm going to echo it. And it is recruit, retain high quality staff. And you spoke to teachers, but it's classified staff. It's your administrative staff. The secondary trauma on these people is massive, and it's this board, retaining this board, right? So yeah, all the above.
And I even think, certificated staff, right? Which is a wonderful pipeline to really diversifying the educational field. We have amazing educators at Westlake who have come from our certificated staff. And I just think it's an amazing way to bring people into the educational field too.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'll just quickly build on that one too, Lila. We had a number of board members mention succession planning in the comments, which makes perfect sense because it was something we had really planned to dive into about, 19 months ago before things really seemed to, take a turn. And I'm sure you're all aware what that turn was. So I do think for me, there is something in the focus on us taking on goal area 1 and demonstrating what is possible. And to do that, we need to demonstrate to our community that they can see themselves reflected in us as their leaders and in our makeup. And so I know one area I'll be pushing for or looking for is having us all commit to outreaching members that we think would be strong on this board and strong on our committees, just to take on that challenge to demonstrate that school leadership is possible for everybody. And I think that ties in really well into that recruit, retain, and continuously develop piece of goal area 1. Josh or Sean? Jed? Josh?
Yeah, so I think my comment was also around, school and community coming together, but also my thought was trying to think of a good ways. I'd like to increase and improve our visibility within the community as a whole. I see us out, and I think that would help for recruiting board members, recruiting committee members to see us out, whether it's, can we gather some parents with Westlake shirts that can help with the park cleanup? We go to the community and say, we need substitute teachers. And, our parents are always there for us. And I think it would be beneficial to start to, I don't want to say give a little bit more back, but to inject ourselves in the community a little bit, particularly as we're looking, to grow in size. We've got a sophomore class, that'll be coming in. We're going to be looking to fill the freshmen, that type of thing. And I'm not saying, we join all the chambers, all of this, all of that, but if there's ways we can sprinkle, as we always say, can we sprinkle a Westlake on it? And can we just maybe scatter some Westlake out in the community and improve our visibility and reach people maybe that we haven't reached before, just through, a little bit of sweat equity and elbow grease.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I also think that speaks a little bit to what Jed often speaks to, and that is what is our greater impact as well. So I think those two thoughts coupled together. Yours is how do we increase visibility in the community, but Jed's often speaking about what is our greater impact on the conversation around education in Sacramento or the greater area. So yeah, I think it goes well.
Which I think ties into Delilah's comment, just to show how interconnected everything is, and the white paper, and the idea of continuing to do or create opportunities for educators to come together where we as a charter can share our tools and knowledge and our own innovations with others so we can help to expand that throughout the region, if not farther. I've always loved how once you start talking about this plan, you can see how everything sort of dovetails into a way where we don't have to just take on one goal area or one piece underneath that goal, that many times so many pieces fit together and we can create change in a lot of areas with one well thought out strategic action. Josh, more? Yeah, please.
Yeah, well, I thought of a great example was the vaccination clinic, and how many of our parents, board members, and people went out to help with that. I mean, we donated our time and our energy, and people took note of that. And those are kind of the things that we can just, it just makes everybody feel good and makes everybody, come together that much more. So that was an example of something like that I just thought of.
Team, if there's not any burning comments on part 1. Is there anybody have anything on part 2 that's like, hey, as a board member, I see there's a gap. We are somewhere today differently than we were when we wrote this thing 3 years ago. There's a gap in the strat plan. Is there anything glaring, and if not, it's okay, but I just want to put it out there.
John, I don't know if it's in part 1 or part 2. I definitely stay focused on that broader impact. I just think that it depends on how we define community. If we define it as Natomas, it's one thing, right? If we define it as in Sacramento, then it's another. And what I would encourage us to do is double down on our due diligence, our understanding of what is happening in broader Sacramento, or really in central Sacramento. The collapse of Sacramento Unified is going to be, one of this region's, biggest stories over the next 5 years and 10 years. If we want to talk about equity in education, this is where our largest numbers of most vulnerable kids are. And our school district is completely and utterly falling apart. Our county superintendent, Dave Gordon, I think is heroically doing what he can with very little, right? And so my question is, can we just get our own bearings, our own point of view on what we think is actually happening? And then we can start to have a question. Do we feel like we have a sense of responsibility? Maybe we don't. Maybe we feel like, maybe we just don't feel like there's something that we do. We just stick to what already had been committed to. My sense is that when we understand how grave the problem is, we probably will think something else is needed of us. I don't know what that is. I'm not saying, oh gosh, we got to, serve 8,000 kids and, we're involved. I don't know what it is. But I think we will be convinced that something more is expected. And it's from that conversation that I think the next decade chapter of Westlake probably is born.
A couple of things very local that came up, obviously, in the survey work that was sent in that hasn't been articulated tonight is an obvious focus on facilities to complete our mission to go K-12 and house all of our kids somewhere. So that's a piece that's certainly out there and is in the survey work as well. It is actually called out in the strat plan, so I guess it's not a missing part. Anything else missing from tonight's conversation? And it's okay because it can be a multi-month conversation. Hope, I would recommend that you and I probably take tonight's conversation plus the survey work, bring some things back to the board and say, is this what you think? Is this what you said? So you and I can craft, some statements, some goal type things and bring them back to the team. Team, before you send us off to do that work, anything else you'd like to add? Janie? Oh, sorry, Janie, then Jed?
No, I just wanted to ask, when do we look at the projected outcomes at any point, because when we make those outcomes, right, they're far out there. So the projected outcomes for 2025 that's not really far away. And then do we ever adjust those outcomes based on what's going on and what's gone on in the last 18 months? Like, you know what I mean? Does something ever shift, or do we look at them and say, this is going to sound harsh, but this doesn't matter? Like, where do we ever shift those outcomes?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, when we wrote this, we did not expect to take 19 months of stall. So are some of these things relevant to the actual 2025? We could certainly go look at those and analyze those and draft up some addendum, some redraft on them. But yeah, I think we should probably look and see how have we been interrupted and what is important now that maybe wasn't then. I mean, Michelle's call out about the focus on community, social, emotional support is so relevant today, and it just wasn't the same when we wrote this a few years back. So I think it's worth looking at, Jenny. Jed, were you going to chime in and I cut you off?
Just another pattern that I'm seeing in lots of different places is organizations realizing they've got to grow to serve younger kids, and 12th grade as an ending point is proving unsatisfactory for lots of folks. I know we already, are doing things with getting kids college credit and that stuff. I wrote about, this really impressive school in New York this week that has committed to making 13th grade.
Yeah.
And now I'm having another conversation with them tomorrow, and I'm realizing how many folks are moving in that kind of direction.
Yeah.
And what typically happens is people get to 12th grade and they feel so good, they're graduating, they're getting most kids into college,
Right.
And then they realize, oh, the kids aren't doing as well. Our historically underserved kids, our at-risk kids, we got them there, but they just didn't stay there, right? I think we have enough information from so many other sources that we can bet, no matter how well we serve our kids, that we're going to have similar patterns happen.
Yeah.
So what do we do proactively to be thinking about 13th grade? What are we really going to try to do to support our kids after, especially the kids that might be the ones that don't make it all the way through? What are we proactively doing so that maybe we don't have to have 3 or 4 years of data come in? It wasn't as good as we wanted it to be. No, we're the organization that proactively built the systems and supports so that our first year's graduates, that they nailed it in wherever they were going. Most of them going to college, but if they're going to other places in work, well, we can learn from some other organizations and be ready as early as possible.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great call out. The 13th grade missing from the strat plan. I love that. College acceptance rates have been such a target in the high school game, but college completion rates are abysmally low. So you can have a great acceptance rate, but it does not mean you're going to get your historically marginalized students across the college graduation stage. So I love the reshift into the 13th year focus. That's great. Thanks, Jed. Okay, Hope.
I guess the only thing too that I'd just like to point out that we might do goal setting a little differently this year, just in the sense that John, you and I talked about this. Like some of the pieces feel very like just administrative goals, like things that we need to, like the splash page, right? So you may not see a goal about onboarding necessarily in those like sort of strategic goals, but that we might just have this like branch of things we wanted just to achieve maybe more in the shorter term versus these longer term goals that wrap into the strategic plan. We're still working on that idea, but I felt like after reviewing the data, there were like the must do sort of things to help things operationally work better. And then there was those strategic actions that over the next 18 months, if we took on, we'd really be building and advancing the work of the organization. Does that make sense, John? Like, I don't know if I explained that quite right.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm tracking you.
Okay.
Well, thank you everybody for a healthy discussion. I'm looking forward to watching this work, unfold. So thank you.
John, will you switch back to the agenda? I know we're done with items for this evening, and I don't necessarily have anything specific for future agenda items, except for bringing back sort of what we talked about tonight in, a more, I don't want to say finalized form, but a more sort of accessible, like written out form for you all to review. Can you do a look for any other public comments that might have come in on this item?
Yes.
Or really any of the items tonight?
Seeing none.
Okay. So with that, we'll go ahead and I'll kick off reflection. Sean, would you mind going first tonight? And then Josh?
Sure. I just really like the whole discussion that we just had. It's really nice to hear we all read the same document, right? It's the strategic plan. We all read it, but yet how we all took something different from it, but yet it all circles back and it's all kind of the same. So it's kind of nice. And then also what Jed was saying about the 13th grade, it reminds me of what people say about pregnancy and how it's 3 trimesters, but then you have the baby and that's the 4th trimester as the baby's figuring out how to be a baby in the world. And I just kind of think that that's kind of, you're talking about sending kids out of 12th grade into college, but is that like their 4th trimester? So that's kind of what I took from it.
Thanks, Sean. Josh, and then Lila.
Yeah, so I'm just the fact that we can have so many people, different ideas that all kind of lead us down the same path. But then I also wanted to sneak in a second celebration. I think that the high school student council is so cool. I love it. When I saw that pop up, I told John I think it's great, and I'm just still. I love what Emily and everybody's doing over there at the high school, and I think it's amazing, and I smile every time talking about it.
And actually, Josh, thank you for the reminder. Real fast, John, I was thinking it might be nice to invite the president if he wanted to present or delegate to any number of his student body members to come and give us an update. Nothing set or standard, but if they wanted to do a report, I think that would be awesome. I meant to say that earlier. So thank you for the reminder, Josh. That was perfect. Lila and then Janie.
And I would love if he came. He is new to Westlake and he is amazing. I'm also just really excited because I think that I get to go to college with all these students now for 13th grade. So I appreciate that, Jed. I'm just going to reflect. I really appreciated rereading the strategic plan at this point. I've read it at different times and I just always appreciate it. It just feels like I take something different from it every time. So I appreciate being asked to read it and reflect on it again at this point in time.
Thanks, Lila. Janie and then Jed.
I also, Josh, love the student council, and I noticed the diversity in that group of kids, and I just hope that our staff and that we can get to that point where we have the diversity that the student council has. Like that shined through, and I loved tonight how we talked about healing, and I thought that was a really cool part about really looking into our community and how we need to heal as well. I thought that was a cool thing. I just love listening to each of you, and I said that in governance too. Like it's such a great just experience to be on the board and hear everyone's point of view.
We're lucky to have you too, Janie. Jed and then Shannon.
Just a reflection is I didn't make any comment on our enrollment basically being exactly what we had predicted. 120, whatever it was, 1,125 versus 1,130. There are very, very few educational entities, in California that are having such stability in their enrollment. And I do really think that us being attuned to the needs of our families and the traumas that we've experienced, I think is important. And you can never do enough of that. I also just think, though, that we have to keep in mind how unique it is that we're only 5 kids different than what we predicted. And we actually have 5 more than we were predicting. And there are just school community after school community that's losing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6%, 27,000 kids gone from LA Unified, 3,500, from San Francisco, 7% of its enrollment. And these organizations are being put through complete and utter trauma. And it's being delayed a little bit by this hold harmless. But the hold harmless is just going to delay the pain and actually make the dislocation even more pronounced. That's what so many others are going to be going through. And so as we go through and we just keep trying to make our community as strong as we possibly can, we also have to appreciate how we are, relative to so many others, trauma-free. And given that, what can we do now to help, more broadly, is, I think, what we should all get ready for. And I think if there's anything I take away from this conversation, it's just a deeper commitment to be a part of the discussion as this really smart board figures those tough things out.
Thanks, Jed. Shannon, and then Michelle.
Yeah, I'll just reflect that I think, especially over the past, since we finished the charter update and then going into the pandemic, the impact committee has been trying to figure out what is our direction and our charge and what is our role now. And it was, interesting to hear so many people's reflections about the strategic plan are things that have very clear nexus to the work that we're doing or trying to do an impact. And I think there's just a lot of opportunity to take what we're hearing here and then do some more research and be able to advance some of the gaps or the goals that we all shared tonight to bring that back and work through the board in that way. So it's good for me selfishly, so we have a little direction from the feedback here. And then last, I'd be remiss if I left this meeting without saying, go Giants.
It's been killing me not to look at the score. I'm being so strong. People, so strong. I'm just saying. Michelle and then Steve.
As always, I just always appreciate the dialogue and discussion that comes up. Everybody is so thoughtful. I also, John, I appreciated the link in the board assessment to the strategic plan because I'm somebody that likes to reference and read it through. And it was great to see that it actually is a living document. There's really not a lot, there's nothing missing. I think there's little tweaks that we had discussed, but it's a living document that can kind of stand through these next 5 years. So it was great to see how that's held up. And I'd be remiss if I didn't just mention the fact that it's not lost on me that it's only 8:00. And we have had some real lengthy meetings where a lot of great work gets done, but it is nice to have one where we have some key focused discussion and then we're getting out of here before the 10:00 hour. So just a moment of celebration there too.
The not needing to do the COVID updates, I'm knocking on wood because I don't want them to come back, has been nice. Steve, and then I'll go.
For me, it's the discussion around the strategic plan. The strategic plan is set, right, to help kind of guide the ship in a certain direction. And every once in a while, we get to kind of peek at it and take a look and have a conversation about it and decide whether we're going to tack a little bit. And if so, what does that look like? So I think that discussion tonight and kind of hearing some input was great timing.
We reflected at the end of governance, and I think it applies here too, about how interesting it is that when we all bring our skill sets to a discussion and we see them sort of unfold on the same document, how we pull out different pieces. And when we bring us all together, we have such a strength in that reflection and that piece of analysis. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that and for everyone bringing their view and being willing to share those. I appreciate it. And I also really want to thank Michelle because she geeked out with me a little bit on public health stuff earlier. And we live in a very special, unique world. You heard it in her celebrations earlier tonight, where we've seen a lot of things, which are not saying they're different or better things. We've just seen a lot of things that not very many people have a view on. And it's nice to have someone to share that with. So thank you, Michelle. John, will you wrap us up?
Yeah, honestly, I think I'm gonna echo kind of what you said. My reflection is what worked in this meeting, and what works for me in a meeting where we're asking for discussion is that we have mission aligned board members. People who you all said in your survey that you were mission aligned, but then listening to you speak about the strategic plan and how each of your concerns or concepts about the plan really overlap and dovetail into one another really demonstrates your alignment as a leadership team. And so I guess my reflection is that it's such a positive to have such a mission aligned group who can say two totally different things that actually are kind of the same thing. So it's just great to watch you approach that work. So thank you everybody for your alignment.
And then Don, just before we adjourn, will you do one more final sweep for public comment?
Gosh, we switched to Zoom to get a live comment and nobody in the wait room, but we'll try again next month and nobody in the email.
I I told you that my whole plan on preparation is the fact that when I really prepare for something like we did tonight, it usually, is unnecessary. But if we hadn't done it, it would have been a whole different can of worms. So with that, I will go ahead and miraculously adjourn this meeting at 8:08. I wish everybody a lovely Halloween if I don't see you sooner. And let's go Giants. So have a nice night.
Thanks,
Sorry
everybody.
for you Dodger fans out there. I know you're out there.
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
night.
Bye-bye.
Okay, and the YouTube stream.